Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Uh-oh. The fan isn't blowing. You know how to turn it on? Up here. Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mishnapad Paramahansa Parudikacharya Ashtoto Tadashri Srimad His Divine Grace Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Mishnapad Paramahansa Parudikacharya Ashtoto Tadashri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavini Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhaktavinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 16th day of March 2021 in SanDiego, a reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in chapter 9 entitled The Most Confidential Knowledge, text number 10 on page 388. Got it? You're all set because you were set up by him. No? Now you're set up. Okay. Maya Dakshena Prakriti Suyate Sacharacharam Hetunanina Kaunteya Jagad Vipadivartate Maya Dakshena Prakriti Suyate Sacharacharam Hetunanina Kaunteya Jagad Vipadivartate Mayadhyakshena Prakriti Suyate Sacharacharam Hetunanena Kaunteya Jagad Vipadivartate. You can check. Yakshena Prakriti Suyate Sacharacharam Hetunanena Kaunteya Jagad Vipadivartate. No, chant. Chant, Mukunda. Maya Dakshena Prakriti Suyate Sacharacharam Hetunanena Kaunteya Jagad Vipadivartate. Maya Dakshena Prakriti Suyate Sacharacharam Hetunanena Kaunteya Jagad Vipadivartate. Michael. Maya Dakshena Prakriti Suyate Sacharacharam Hetunanena Kaunteya Jagad Vipadivartate. Hina? No? Okay. Maya by me, Adhyakshena by superintendence. Prakritihi, material nature. Suyate, manifest. Sa, both. Chara acharam, the moving and the non-moving. Hetuna, for the reason. Anena, this. Kaunteya, O son of Kunti. Jagat, the cosmic manifestation. Vipadivartate is working. Sorry. This material nature, which is one of my energies, is working under my direction, O son of Kunti, producing all moving and non-moving beings. Under its rule, this manifestation is created and annihilated again and again. Purport. It is clearly stated here that the Supreme Lord, although aloof from all the activities of the material world, remains the Supreme Director. The Supreme Lord is the Supreme Will and the background of this material manifestation. But the management is being conducted by material nature. Krishna also states in the Bhagavad Gita that of all the living entities in different forms and species, quote, I am the Father. The Father gives seeds to the womb of the mother for the child. And similarly, the Supreme Lord, by his mere glance, injects all the living entities into the womb of material nature, and they come out in their different forms and species according to their last desires and activities. All these living entities, although born under the glance of the Supreme Lord, take their different bodies according to their past deeds and desires. So the Lord is not directly attached to this material creation. He simply glances over material nature. Material nature is thus activated, and everything is created immediately. Because he glances over material nature, there is undoubtedly activity on the part of the Supreme Lord. But he has nothing to do with the manifestation of the material world directly. This example is given in the Smriti. When there is a fragrant flower before someone, the fragrance is touched by the smelling power of the person, yet the smelling and the flower are detached from one another. There is a similar connection between the material world and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Actually, he has nothing to do with this material world, but he creates by his glance and ordains. In summary, material nature, without the superintendence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, cannot do anything. Yet the Supreme Personality is detached from all material activities. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So this is a oft-quoted verse, and it states the essential fact, and for us to understand, that behind the complexity of this material world, even one day or one moment in this world, what is big of the universe, is filled with so many amazing interactions and activities, and we can just contemplate our own body, just one day in our body or any organism. How many interactions have to take place, and the right amount of this chemical has to be exerted. You have these hormones going on and the enzymes and unlimited complexity to make it work, even as imperfectly as it does work. And how just by intuition of an 8th grader, there's got to be some intelligence behind it. This is one of the I remember years and years ago when I became acquainted with some of the theology, I think St. Thomas Aquinas, and he was trying to prove the existence of God, various proofs. And one of the ones which he came up with, which Prabhupada also talks about all the time, is what is called the argument from design. The argument from design, that there must be an intelligence behind all of these natural things that we see, because they're designed so wonderfully. I remember Prabhupada giving an example. If you're walking along the street and you see a watch next to your sidewalk, do you think it just happened? It just grew up there, It's a complicated thing, but it's not nearly as complicated as the little blade of grass that's growing next to it. I remember, I used to work with the Bhaktivedanta Institute. It's not as famous as it used to be. You used to have to just say BI and everyone knew what you meant. But this was one of the, especially the last year of Prabhupada's manifestation before he departed, he was very eager to energize and found this Bhaktivedanta Institute, which is the main mission is to challenge the scientific understanding of how things are going on, especially how species came about, the whole Darwinian thing, And Prabhupada is always looking for first causes. I don't even know if Darwin got into that. I mean, if you look at his writings, it was all natural selection and how the species developed from other species, but how life began and how everything started. But that's always the inquiry of the transcendentalists, of those who are looking for the absolute truth. If that little aphorism at the beginning of Vedanta Sutra is so important. Atato Brahma Jigyasa. Jigyasa is a word meaning inquisitive, because as human beings, with our intelligence, we're always inquisitive about something. And the vast majority of people are inquisitive about, where is there more safety, where can I get some food, sex. But there's also, because of the grains, there's this whole scientific edifice that's been built up over hundreds and thousands of years, understanding how this world works, by observation and theory and experiment like that. So they've come up with an idea that is devoid of God. How there was some undifferentiated, what do they call it, primeval soup or something of chemicals, and their whole argument is that over many, many thousands or millions and millions of years, nothing happened, and then because of the sunshine or some energy coming into it, a very simple 2-cell organism was created, and then many, many, many years happened, and then that developed, got together with another one, and gradually it evolved, But I remember when I worked with the BI, Sadhaputta pointed out that even these so-called simple, one-celled organisms, he could explain how. He said it's more complicated than New York City, what's going on in there. All of the different little things that have to go on within the cell so that the cell can live. Who could imagine? Oh, it's just a simple No, there's nothing simple. Everything has so much intelligence behind it. And Sariputta Prabhu, I had some very, prolonged interactions with. I worked with the BI. I was there in Brooklyn when I joined, and it was like a year before I moved. And he, of course, became part of the BI. Bhadrinarayan Maharaj, I loved him. He stayed here for at least a year or two, working on that book, the hidden, what is it called? Forbidden Archaeology. With Druta Karma was down here, Madhavendra Puri, the whole team. So his specialty, you talk about Krishna sending just the person that you need, His specialty was information theory. This is all on the PhD level, mathematics. Have you ever seen them work? I remember when I went to college for my few months, I audited, just sort of sat in a class, advanced mathematics, because this was University of Chicago, which is famous for that. That's where they first sustained the nuclear reaction and everything. Anyway, so they had these special blackboards, they're green, and it's not that you write the whole equation on there and then you have to erase it and keep writing. No, you just move one panel of the green board and you keep writing. So you can keep going on. And after about 30 seconds, it was out of my realm. I couldn't understand what was going on. I just watched him, And this is where Sariputta was at. He could think in those terms, and he would sit in class and make notes, He wasn't exactly taking notes on the class. He was he was pouring out these equations. So anyway, he wrote as a devotee, he wrote a thesis or a paper called Proof by Information Theory. This was his specialty, Proof from Information Theory, how life could not arise from matter. And he had this whole way of calculating the information. Information is, intuitively you know what it is. Like each of us has so much information in our body, in our life, and so forth. This book, all the words in it can constitute the information. So he calculated somehow the information, estimating, of course, in the universe. And he proved how that amount of information could not arise just by chance. There has to be an intelligent being behind it who is guiding it, And that's basically the idea. So back to our verse. This is exactly what Krishna is saying. We cannot see directly the intelligence behind everything going on. But with a little application of normal intelligence, we can see there must be some intelligence behind it because it's working so wonderfully. The sun is rising. It's at the time. You get the calendars for a year ahead, 2 years, 10 years ahead. They can predict just when sunrise is going to be, right? And the stars are moving and all these things. What to speak of what's going on in our own body. So all of this intelligence should give us a great faith that there is an intelligence behind it. In other words, this evidence of intelligence leads that, and when you have intelligence, you have a person, and the ultimate intelligence is the supreme person. Now we learn from the Vedas in general, Bhagavatam, that there are other intelligences. In other words, there's Brahma, who's super intelligent. He's also engaged in creating and arranging things, and Indra and these other demigods. They have a role to play, but the overarching intelligence behind all of them is Krishna. And that's what he's saying here. Maya Dakshina, by my superintendence, by his, he's watching over everything. Prakriti, which is this material energy. Suyate manifests moving and non-moving beings. And because of my oversight, everything is Viprati Vartate, means the universe is working. All of the different things are meshing and it's going on. And so that's very important information, because this whole chapter is about the most confidential knowledge. And what could be more confidential than information that is, Haribol, nice to see you. That is telling us what's behind the veil of material energy. Because we can't see this, and nobody can see. The scientists can't see it with their most powerful microscopes and telescopes. That's still magnifying our imperfect senses. And this is the great fallacy of the ascending form of knowledge. There's ascending and descending. Ascending is the scientific method. You use your senses and their amplification, such as the microscopes, telescopes, and so many different things, the computerized this and that, to investigate the world. and you find certain patterns, and you can take certain data, and you set a certain theory, and then you keep testing it until finally it becomes, okay, this is how we understand this is going on. And you build on it. You don't have to reinvent the computer every time, it's already there. So, but with all of that, you're still basing it all on your imperfect senses and mind. And don't forget, we begin with these 4 defects. This is important to understand. How do we know what we know? How can we know that which is beyond the range of our senses and mind? Only by revelation. But the scientists are relying entirely on the senses and mind. And so even though it's an amazing edifice of knowledge they've built up, it's still imperfect. And you make mistakes. Here's the order to think of them. The senses are imperfect. Who can deny it? So by the senses being imperfect, we make mistakes about the world and it's something that we have to keep correcting, right? So that mistake, when those mistakes become endemic and everybody's making the same mistake, this turns into a great illusion. And the foundational illusion of the whole thing is, I am this body. You see? That's the big fallacy. So mistakes, imperfect senses, mistakes, illusion, and then you propagate that illusion as knowledge, which is going on in the university schools of all kinds. And that's called cheating. People may not even know they're cheating, but they're cheating because they're assuming, the big cheat is that they're stating this way of gaining knowledge is the only way. And we've seen how we've proved it. We built all this edifice of knowledge up in technology, and it's working. But is it really working? It keeps breaking down. You study. How everyone who takes part in the internet knows that after a while, if you buy things and they know something about you. So they're always sending me things about how you can counteract old age and this and that. So today I got something about how there's all these chemicals in your food, in the air, in the water, that have been building up, and it's true. This is the byproduct of all the technology. You want the plastics, then you got to get the plastics in the ocean too, and you got to get the plastics giving off the chemicals that eventually go into your body. So of course they want to scare you, and then there's always a punchline to sell you something to counteract the chemicals. So I didn't fall for it again. But it's a fact. This is. I go back to Prahlad Maharaj's prayer. Some of you have heard my classes. I like to chant this verse because it's so cogent what the nature of the material world is. He says, "Yasmat priya priya viyoga sa yoga janma shokagnana sakala yona shadayamana." So the first 2 lines, he's describing the situation that we find ourselves in. It doesn't matter whether you're living in modern, Western society or primitive society or 10,000 years ago. This pertains. It's eternal now. So this is a very nice, the Sanskrit is beautifully constructed. Yasmat, from this situation. What is it? Priya apriya biyoga sa yoga. So what does that mean? That which is dear to you. And, you can begin with your own body. It's so dear. Even the animals, they'll do anything to try to escape danger, So the body. And things, especially in higher consciousness, human beings, people, and things that you like, that you work for. You have things that you like, that's make life worth living, right? So as time goes on, those things are ripped away from you. If nothing else, you just get old. And the things you could enjoy before, you can't enjoy anymore. Or it's especially in today's world, family life is so crazy. As soon as the kids grow up, they move away, and the empty nest syndrome. You have this nuclear family where in India, you had the traditional family, you had the uncles and the aunts and everything. You had a whole extended family living together, supporting each other. It's Maya, but at least it's more sane. So all those you've given your life and soul, and you raised this kid, and then you don't see him anymore. You're lucky if they call up, like that. So in other words, it's there and it's not there. Your health, suddenly cannot be there anymore. It gets threatened, and then you have to live with some chronic thing. So this is priya, being taken away, viyoga. And on the other side, those are the things which are not dear to you, which you hate, which you abhor, which you fear, they're forced upon you, like COVID-19. You know, perfect example. Does anyone like it? No. It brings, you know, it's just freaking everyone out. And the results are, you know, everyone's life is being overhauled and, you know, stopped. So and so then he says, this is the nature of material world. Eventually, the things you love taken away, the things you hate are forced on you. So then he calls this a shokagnina. This creates a fire of lamentation, but on both sides, right? Fire of lamentation, and not just in one body, but all bodies, in all species. Sakala yonishu dayamana. So he's praying to Lord Nrsingadev. I've been burning, you know, in this fire of lamentation caused by these things, you know. And in the human form of life, especially, we have so many remedies for this dukkha. We'll counteract it, right? Dukkha aushadam, literally a remedy, herbal remedy, whatever, for the dukkha. You know, such as, you know, in the course of life, you know, especially if you have you're a manual laborer, you know, and you've strained something, or chronic pain. We have the solution. You know, go back 20 years. OxyContin. OxyContin simply means continuous opioid. That's where the content comes in. You know, derived from opium. But don't worry, it's very minute and it's time release, so it's not addictive. Don't worry about it. You know, what a relief. So this is a dukkha aushadam. Tadapi dukkam. That solution has produced more misery than the misery beginning. Right? Now there's multi-billion-dollar suits where everybody got addicted. You know, it's still going on. Overdoses. So this is the material world. Dukkha aushadam tadapi dukkam. And then he gives like one of these little sutras that describe the whole basis of the problem. Attadiyaham. Now there's different ways of translating this, and Prabhupada gives one of the translations in his Bhagavatam. Attadiyaham. Diyaham means I'm thinking. I have the mentality that I am something I'm not. In other words, because I'm on the bodily concept of life. Because I'm not open to the Krishna philosophy, the Krishna conscious philosophy, the Bhagavad Gita. So then, that's 3 lines, and the last line he gives a solution to the problem. Don't forget, he's right before Lord Nrsingadev, little Prahlad, you know, is livened and he's enlightened, and he's praying, Bhuman Bhamame Vadame Tabadasya Yogam. This soul who's wandering in this world of misery, Brahmami, oh great one, please instruct me in your Dasya Yoga, which is another way of saying Bhakti Yoga, the yoga of service to you. So he's giving us a model by which we can pray, you see. And so this verse that we had today is describing who's behind everything. Now, if we directly are able to contact that person, then he can solve all the problems because he's in charge of Prakriti. And this is an echo of, or correlative verse to the verse in 7th chapter where Krishna says, Daivi yesha gunamayi mama maya duratya mame viye prapadyante maya metang tarantite. Very important verse. This material world, which is made up of my maya, which is divine because it's connected to me, Daivi yesha gunamahi, made up the modes of nature, is impossible to cross over. Duratya, it says difficult, but super difficult means impossible to cross over on your own. Daivi gun mama maya duratya, but those who surrender unto me can easily cross beyond it. Why? Because maya jakshena prakriti. Because it's under my instruction. I can, Krishna instructs Maya Devi, release him. Release your bonds. Guna also means ropes. Just cut those bonds. So this is the solution to the whole problem, is getting in touch with the person who's in control of this material energy, and he can actually end our great fire of lamentation that we've been leading for millions of births. So that's the importance of this verse, and it answers the question at the beginning of the Brahma Sutra, the Vedanta Sutra. Tato Brahmadev, one should be inquisitive to inquire into the absolute truth, which is defined in the next sutra as Janmajasya Yataha, that which creates everything, who sustains everything, and who destroys everything. That's Krishna, Maya Jakshena Prakriti. And we'll learn in the next chapter, in the essential 4 verses, Aham Sarvasya Prabhavo. Everything is emanating from me everything comes. The wise who understand this well worship me with all their hearts. And then I, from within their hearts, give them the intelligence by which they can come to me. And what's the essential, instruction? Always think of me, machitta, and direct your life energy toward me in service, Madgata Prana, and enlivening one another by glorifying me together and serving me together, enjoying transcendental pleasure. To them, I give the intelligence by which they come to me out of compassion, because Krishna is supreme empath. He enlightens us from within. He destroys the darkness of ignorance in our heart with a shining lamp of knowledge. So all of that is supported and confirmed by the present verse. Any questions on this very important verse? Oh, the mic behind you. That one? Right there? Right there? Now, why is that yellow? Now we have a new color? Anyway, as long as it works, I guess. Oh, no, it's green. I see. Okay. You just wanted to get the mic? Okay. All right, now we're going to hear what Krishna feels about those who deride him. They don't accept him. Okay, next verse, very important. Avajanante mamudha manushim tanam ashritam parambhav majananto mama bhuta maheshwaram. Fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know my transcendental nature as the Supreme Lord of all that be. Purport. From the other explanations of the previous verses in this chapter, it is clear that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, although appearing like a human being, is not a common man. The Personality of Godhead, who conducts the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of the complete cosmic manifestation, cannot be a human being. Yet there are many foolish men who consider Krishna to be merely a powerful man and nothing more. Actually, he is the original Supreme Personality, as is confirmed in the Brahma Samhita. Ishvara Parama Krishna. He is the Supreme Lord. There are many Ishwaras, controllers, and one appears greater than another. In the ordinary management of affairs in the material world, we find some official or director, and above him there is a secretary, and above him minister, and above him a president. Each of them is a controller, but one is controlled by another. In the Brahma Samhita, it is said that Krishna is the supreme controller. There are many controllers, undoubtedly, both in the material and spiritual world, but Krishna is the supreme controller, Ishvara Paramak Krishna, and his body is Satchidananda, non-material. Material bodies cannot perform the wonderful acts described in previous verses. His body is eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge. Although he is not a common man, the foolish deride him and consider him to be a man. His body is called here Manushim because he is acting just like a man, a friend of Arjun's, a politician involved in the battle of Kurukshetra. In so many ways, he is acting just like an ordinary man, but actually his body is Satchid Ananda Vigraha, eternal bliss and knowledge absolute. This is confirmed in the Vedic language also, Satchidananda Rupaya Krishnaya. I offer my obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, who is the eternal blissful form of knowledge. Gopal Tapani Upanishad 1:1. There are other descriptions in the Vedic language also. Tamekam Govindam, you are Govinda, the pleasure of the senses and the cows, Satchidananda Vigraham, and your form is transcendental, full of knowledge, bliss, and eternality. Gopal Tapani Upanishad 1:38. Despite the transcendental qualities of Lord Krishna's body, its full bliss and knowledge, there are many so-called scholars and commentators of the Bhagavad Gita who deride Krishna as an ordinary man. The scholar may be born an extraordinary man due to his previous good work, but this conception of Sri Krishna is due to a poor fund of knowledge. Therefore he is called Mudha, for only foolish persons consider Krishna to be an ordinary human being. The foolish consider Krishna an ordinary human being because they do not know the confidential activities of the Supreme Lord and his different energies. They do not know that Krishna's body is a symbol of complete knowledge and bliss, that he is the proprietor of everything that be, and that he can award liberation to anyone. Because they do not know that Krishna has so many transcendental qualifications, they deride him. Nor do they know that the appearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in this material world is a manifestation of his internal energy. He is the master of the material energy. As has been explained in several places, Mamamaya Duratjaya, this is the one I just quoted from the 7th chapter. He claims that the material energy, although very powerful, is under his control, and whoever surrenders unto him can get out of the control of this material energy. If a soul surrendered to Krishna can get out of the influence of material energy, then how can the Supreme Lord, who conducts the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of the whole cosmic nature, have a material body like us? So this conception of Krishna is complete foolishness. Foolish persons, however, cannot conceive that the personality of Godhead, Krishna, appearing just like an ordinary man, can be the controller of all the atoms and of the gigantic manifestation of the universal form. The biggest and the minutest are beyond their conception, so they cannot imagine that a form like that of a human being can simultaneously control the infinite and the minute. Actually, although he is controlling the infinite and the finite, he is apart from all this manifestation. It is clearly stated concerning his Yogam Aishwaram. He is inconceivable transcendental energy. His inconceivable transcendental energy, that he can control the infinite and the finite simultaneously, and that he can remain aloof from them. Although the foolish cannot imagine how Krishna, who appears just like a human being, can control the infinite and the finite, those who are pure devotees accept this, for they know that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore they completely surrender unto him and engage in Krishna consciousness, devotional service of the Lord. There are many controversies between the impersonalists and the personalists about the Lord's appearance as a human being. But if we consult the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, the authoritative texts for understanding the science of Krishna, then we can understand that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is not an ordinary man, although he appeared on this earth as an ordinary human. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, first chapter, when the sages headed by Shaunaka inquired about the activities of Krishna, they said, Kritavan kilakarmani saharame nakeshabaha atimartyani bhagavan gudha kapatamanushaha. Lord Shri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, along with Balaram, played like a human being, and so masked, he performed many superhuman acts. Bhagavatam 1.120. The Lord's appearance as a man bewilders the foolish. No human being could perform the wonderful acts that Krishna performed while he was present on this earth. When Krishna appeared before his father and mother, Vasudeva and Devaki, he appeared with 4 hands, but after the prayers of the parents, he transformed himself into an ordinary child. By the way, he appeared with 4 hands, but he was a little baby with 4 hands. Just to let you know. That's even more amazing. Okay. As stated in the Bhagavatam 10.3.46, Babhuva Prakrita Shishuhu. He became just like an ordinary child, an ordinary human being. Now here again it is indicated that the Lord's appearance as an ordinary human being is one of the features of his transcendental body. In the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita also it is stated that Arjuna prayed to see Krishna's form of 4 hands, Tenaiva Rupena Chaturbhujena. After revealing this form, Krishna, when petitioned by Arjuna, again assumed his original human-like form, Manusham Rupam. These different features of the Supreme Lord are certainly not those of an ordinary human being. Some of those who deride Krishna and who are infected with the Mayavadi philosophy quote the following verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 3.29.21 to prove that Krishna is just an ordinary man. Aham sarveshu bhuteshu bhutatma vastita sada. The Supreme is present in every living entity. We should better take note of this particular verse from the Vaishnava Acharyas like Jiva Goswami and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur instead of following the interpretation of unauthorized persons who deride Krishna. Jiva Goswami, commenting on this verse, says that Krishna, in his plenary expansion as the Paramatma, is situated in the moving and the non-moving entities as the Supersoul. So any neophyte devotee who simply gives his attention to the Archamurti, the form of the Supreme Lord in the temple, and does not respect other living entities, is uselessly worshipping the form of the Lord in the temple. There are 3 kinds of devotees of the Lord, and the neophyte is in the lowest stage. The neophyte devotee gives more attention to the deity in the temple than to other devotees. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur warns that this sort of mentality should be corrected. A devotee should see that because Krishna is present in everyone's heart as the Paramatma, every body is the embodiment of the temple of the Supreme Lord. So as one offers respect to the temple of the Lord, he should similarly properly respect each and every body in which the Paramatma dwells. Everyone should therefore be given proper respect and should not be neglected. There are so many impersonalists who deride temple worship. They say that since God is everywhere, why should one restrict himself to temple worship? But if God is everywhere, is he not in the temple or in the deity? Although the personalist and the impersonalist will fight with one another perpetually, a perfect devotee in Krishna consciousness knows that although Krishna is the Supreme Personality, he is all-pervading, as confirmed in the Brahma Samhita. Although his personal abode is Goloka Vrindavan, and he is always staying there, by his different manifestations of energy and by his plenary expansion, he is present everywhere in all parts of the material and spiritual creation. Okay, quite a purport. So one thing I was thinking as I was reading there, what's going on here is an amazing, startling contrast between Krishna's human form and what we've just been reading, Maya Jakshena Prakriti, that the whole universe, every little activity of nature is under my direction. And this is mind-boggling to think that there's someone who has a consciousness that is so vast that he can consciously be guiding every little activity. And then he's aloof also. So it's kind of he's so powerful that this can be an activity that doesn't really impinge on what he really wants to do. And that's what the point I was going to make, is that with all of this, and all of the different Narayan forms that he has for the creation, then what's the necessity of having the human form at all? The human form is the original form, enables him to do what he really wants to do, which is to enjoy the rasa. Enjoy rasa with other human-like forms, basically, And so the majesty and all of the creation, this is secondary. This is completely unnecessary from Krishna. Krishna doesn't want to do any of that, but it's necessary because we need a place separate from the spiritual world where we won't cause any disturbances. Just like this temple, we know. I've been in temples, and where you have a big population. Here everyone's, we're working like a finely tuned watch, so to speak, But you have temples where people are joining every day, or people are hanging out, or somebody joined and they're really not ready to join, So at a certain point, someone may become a disturbance. He or she, is not getting up, and they're critical, and they're not doing the program. Well, they have to leave. Sorry, Bhakti Joe, you can't stay anymore, because you did this and this, you're not able to. Okay, Well, that's just like the spiritual world. In other words, Bhakti Joe is creating disturbance for the other devotees, because he's not. The whole thing depends on the unity and the kirtan. You know how hard it is when someone's singing out of tune, loudly. They like to sing loud, but they're out of tune. It's not a game breaker, but it's something that, it can be a disturbance. And it's even more incredible if someone's playing drum or kartals out of tune, I'm not going to go to I've had experience. I once stopped a young girl playing the kartals. Oh my God, their parents practically, sent me to some other loka. But it was because it was discordant and it was distracting. It was distracting. That's the thing. So Krishna's favorite thing to do, is just to play in the spiritual world, and that's where we want to go. We don't want to have to worry about the material world at all, And Krishna doesn't really want to worry about it, though he expands and everything. And so Mahavishnu, Garbhodaksha Vishnu, you can do it, take care of it, and all the energies. And Krishna is so powerful that he can, expand in that way. Welcome, Hare Krishna. Please. Yes, have a seat. Yeah. So we're studying Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, and we can get some books and the stands, whatever. And we'll have kirtan, darshan in 15 minutes. Darshan in 15 minutes. So, but when Krishna comes in his human form, which is his original form, Fools deride him. That's what this verse is all about. They don't understand that he's the source of Narayan. He is the source of Mahavishnu. This seemingly human-like form that has so many potencies, but he hides them. There's this concept of Yoga Maya. Yoga Maya is Krishna's internal energy, and she expands as Mahamaya. It's one person, but she's different functions. So Yoga Maya's function is to hide Krishna's majesty so that he can enjoy intimate relations with his dear devotees. The famous incident with Mother Yashoda. And Krishna had been accused of eating earth. I mean, little children, they eat earth all the time, right? I mean, So it's an accusation, He denied it. He said, Balaram is lying about me again, Somebody says, well, open your mouth. I want to see, So he opens his mouth, and there she sees the whole universe inside, And then she says, oh my God, I've been thinking that this little boy is my child, and he's Nanda Maharaj's son. But now I see that he's the Supreme Personality of God. But before she could get too far down that road, Krishna covered her over again with Yoga Maya. Because he wants her to think of him as a helpless child for that protection. That's what he enjoys. He enjoys being loved and served as an intimate friend, a lover, a child, like that, and being able to reciprocate those loves. There's a phrase in one of the Upanishads, I forget which one, it says Raso Vaisaha, that God is rasa personified, and rasam eva labdva anandi, rasam evayam labdva anandi bhavati. That when we regain our ability to exchange rasa with Krishna, then we become anandis. We become truly blissful all the time. None of this flickering Maya happiness that's just keeping us bound here. So the whole thing is based on rasa. There's a wonderful verse that was composed by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, based on the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, the Sanatana Goswami, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and it has the 10 basic principles of Gaudiya Vaishnavism in it. It's called Dasha Mula, the 10 root principles of philosophy. So I'll just run through this nice summary of the philosophy. Everything is subsumed under it. Amnaya prahatatvam hadamiha padamam sarvashaktim risabdim tadbinangshangsta jivan prakatika balitam tad vimuktangssta bhavat veda prakasham sakalamapihare sadhanam shuddha bhaktim sadyam tad pritameve tupadishitadanan gora chanda bhajetam. I may get that last part differently. So he says, Lord Chaitanya taught these 10 principles. Now the first one is epistemology. How do we know anything about those things which are beyond the range of our material senses and mind? That's where the Amnaya comes in. Amnaya means the knowledge of the revealed scriptures, such as Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, as they are, as received through realized souls. So it includes the disciplic succession, the teachers, the gurus, as well as the Shastra. And what do they say? What's the conclusion of Amnaya? Krishna's God. That's the first thing. Hadimi Hapadamam. Hari is supreme. And what about him? Sarva Shaktim. He's full of all kinds of energies. We've been hearing about some of them, the creative energies, maintenance, destruction. All of that is his energy. Internal also. And then, Risabdim. He's an ocean of rasa. He's not just a powerhouse. He's a person who is enjoying all varieties of loving exchange with his devotees. Now what about us? What are we? Tadbin angshangsha jivan. We are separated part and parcels, angsha of Krishna. We have his qualities in minute degree. Tadbin angshangsha jivan. And some of them, like us, prakatika balitan, we've been swallowed up by this Maya illusion. But, not to despair, tadvimuktangsta bhavat. Some, by his mercy, can be liberated. And then he says, this is Lord Chaitanya's special reconciliation of all kinds of philosophical points. Beda prakasham sakalamabhihare. That everything, both spiritual and material, is simultaneously one with and different from Krishna. One with and separate from Krishna, which is inconceivable. So it's a chincha beta tattva. Okay, so all of that is part of sambandha gyan. Means understanding who we are, who God is, what this world is, what the environment is, and what the relationships are. Then what do we do about it? That's called abhidheya. Sambandha and Abhideya Gyan. What the practice is. Sadhanam, what is the sadhana? Shuddha Bhakti. Not any other kind of bhakti, but pure devotion, which is defined by Rupa Goswami, The free of any kind of tinge of material desire, simply for the pleasure of Krishna. And what's the goal of all this? Sadhya, the sadhana sadhyam tad pritam evid, love for that Hari or Krishna. Prema is the sadhana. This is what Lord Chaitanya taught, and we don't know anything different from it. This is the problem. So those 10 principles, there's everything in the Bhagavad Gita, every verse you can put under one of those categories. It all fits in with some Sambandha Abhideya Prayoja like that. So here Krishna is describing his energies, and he's also describing his human form, and how those who are ignorant, they don't understand, and so they deride, or here they say he's an ordinary man. Most people would say he's just imaginary. He's a mythological figure, not even an ordinary human being. But that's complete ignorance. We have faith in the Shastra. Why? Because of Prabhupada. And the line behind him, right? All of these towering intellectuals and great realized souls, ascetics of incredible, caliber. This is all history, Why would they do all that? When it says that the Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami gave up hundreds of millions of dollars, in their right and left hand to the king, and surrendered and went to Vrindavan, became as austere as you could possibly be. They didn't have a home. They didn't have any food practically. They hardly ate or slept. But they were existing at the highest levels of ecstasy. Gopi Bhava Rasamritabda Lahali Kalo. There you have rasa again. Gopi Bhava Rasamritabda Lahali Kalola Magnomohor. Again and again, diving and swimming in the ocean of Gopi Bhava. Ecstasy. They were the happiest and most blissful of everyone. Materially, they had as close to nothing as you can imagine. So they wrote all these books. Why? Was it all some big conspiracy? Why? It must be real. You see, these are all great intellectuals. So we have faith that Krishna is real, and we're not going to fall into this illusion of deriding him or ignoring him or thinking that he's imaginary. Now Prabhupada quotes so many quotations here from the Shastra. These are undoubtedly in the commentary of Vishwanath Chakravarti Gopal Tapani Upanishad, which, as the name suggests, is all about Gopal. It's all about Krishna, one of the Upanishads. And Prabhupada gives a lot of arguments here to describe how foolish it is to disbelieve in Krishna, and that's what is being discussed here. All right, as usual, we ran out of time, but we have 1 minute left, so let me give some little poem. So here's a poem. It's not based on a direct verse, but I wrote it for a calendar many years ago, 17 years ago. So it's nice if you can remember the painting. Krishna's seated out in the forest in an idyllic spot. He's got a little dove on his hand, and there's a deer over here, and there's a little cow over there. And it's an idyllic scene in Vrindavan. The sweetness of Shri Krishna's form beguiles. Still sweeter is his face like autumn moon, but sweeter than the sweetest is his smile, whose luscious beauty makes the gopis swoon. Govinda's beauty captivates the doves, the swans, the deer, the cows, and every tree. Indeed, in Braja, every creature loves Sri Krishna and is drowned in ecstasy. That all-enchanting land is paradise, our home where we may dwell eternally. Most welcome there are those who pay the price to learn to love Sri Krishna perfectly. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol. So we'll continue tomorrow with text 12.